You were there for all of it. Your first steps, your first word, the first time you laughed so hard you couldn't breathe. You were fully alive for the most important years of your life, and you can't remember a single second of it. Think about that. For roughly the first 3 years you existed, you were awake, learning faster than you ever will again, forming thousands of memories a day. Then a door closed, and everything behind it went dark. Most people cannot recall anything before the age of 3 or 4. A few blurry fragments maybe, a color, a feeling, a moment that might not even be real. But the story of your own beginning is gone. We tend to assume the answer is obvious. You were just a baby. Babies don't remember things. Their brains are too undeveloped. But the real answer is far stranger. Because you did remember. Your infant brain was recording constantly. Those memories were formed, stored, real. Something came along and erased them. And scientists are only now beginning to understand what. This has a name. Infantile amnesia. Sigmund Freud coined the term more than a century ago, and he was fascinated by it. He noticed that his patients could recall almost nothing from their earliest years, despite those years being emotionally enormous. Freud had his own theories, most of which have not aged well. But the phenomenon he described is completely real, and it happens to nearly every human on Earth. Here is the first thing that should unsettle you. Babies are not bad at memory. In some ways, they are extraordinary at it. A baby learns to recognize its mother's voice before it is even born. Within months, an infant can remember faces, sounds, routines, the location of a hidden toy. Researchers have shown that babies as young as a few months old can learn that kicking their leg makes a mobile above their crib move, and they will remember that trick days later. The wiring for memory is there. It works. So why does none of it survive? To answer that, you have to look at the one part of your brain that builds the kind of memory you're actually asking about. Not all memory is the same. There is the memory that lets you ride a bike or speak your language. That kind is quiet and durable and lives deep in the brain. But the memory you're mourning when you try to recall being small is different. It's called autobiographical memory. It's the memory of events, of specific moments happening to a specific you. And that kind of memory depends heavily on a small, curled structure buried on each side of your brain, the hippocampus. The hippocampus is your memory's librarian. It takes the scattered sensations of a moment, the sight, the sound, the feeling, and binds them together into a single filed experience you can pull out later. And in a newborn, this librarian has barely shown up for work. The hippocampus is one of the last parts of the brain to mature. In your first years of life, it was still under construction. But here's where it gets interesting. For a long time, scientists assumed that was the whole answer. Immature hippocampus, no memories, case closed. That explanation has a crack in it. Because the newer research suggests the memories were being made after all. Something was actively destroying them. Meet Paul Franklin and Sheena Jocelyn, neuroscientists in Toronto, who ran a series of experiments that flipped the entire question. They were studying something called neurogenesis. That's the birth of new neurons. And it turns out the infant hippocampus is a furnace of it. In your first years, your brain was generating new neurons at a staggering rate, cramming fresh cells into the very structure responsible for storing your memories. That sounds like a good thing. More brain cells, more power. But Franklin and Jocelyn noticed a problem. When you jam a flood of brand new neurons into an existing memory circuit, you don't add to the memories. You disrupt them. Imagine a library where the shelves are already full of carefully filed books, and every single day, workers barge in and rebuild the shelving, rearrange everything, tear out sections, and rewire the whole layout. The books don't vanish because they were badly written. They vanish because the map that told you where to find them was destroyed. To test this, the researchers turned to mice, which also experience a form of infantile amnesia. When they slowed down neurogenesis in young mice, the young mice suddenly kept their early memories for far longer. And when they cranked up neurogenesis in adult mice, artificially forcing that infant-like flood of new neurons, the adults began to forget things they normally would have kept. The forgetting followed the new neurons. That was the clue. Your earliest memories may not have faded from neglect. They may have been overwritten by the very growth that was building your mind. Sit with that for a second. The reason you can't remember your beginning might be the same reason your brain was able to become anything at all. The forgetting wasn't a malfunction. It was the cost of construction, but the brain is only half the story. Because there's a second force at work, and it's just as strange. Language. Think about what a memory actually is when you recall it. It's a story. It has a sequence, a place, characters, a sense of you at the center of it. Now consider what a one-year-old lacks. Words. A one-year-old experiences the world as raw, unnarrated sensation. A flood of color and sound and feeling with no thread, stitching it into a tale you can retell. And a memory you cannot tell is a memory you struggle to keep. Researchers who study how children remember have found that the ability to hold on to autobiographical memories climbs sharply right alongside language. The developmental psychologist Catherine Nelson spent years exploring how children build the narrative self, and a central insight from that field is that memory becomes durable when a child learns to talk about the past, especially with a parent who asks about it. When your mother said, "Remember when we saw the ducks," and helped you shape the day into words, she wasn't just chatting. She was teaching your brain how to file a life. Carol Peterson, a researcher who has studied children's earliest memories for decades, found something that fits this perfectly. When you ask young children about their first memories, they can often report events from surprisingly early, around age 3, but those early memories are unstable. Follow the same children over the years, and many of those first memories quietly drop away and get replaced by later ones. The offset of childhood amnesia, the age of your earliest surviving memory, actually shifts as you grow. What feels like a fixed loss boundary is really a moving one. So you have two forces working together: a brain physically rebuilding itself, overwriting memories as fast as it makes them, and a mind without language, unable to wrap experiences in the words that would let them last. Between the two, your earliest years didn't stand a chance. And yet, this is the part that should give you pause. Just because you cannot recall those years does not mean they left you untouched. Quite the opposite. Patricia Bauer, a psychologist who studies memory across childhood, has described a striking asymmetry. Early memories are fragile and easily lost, but the effects of early experiences can be remarkably durable. The years you cannot remember were the years that shaped you the most. You learned your language in those years. You formed your first bonds, your first sense of whether the world was safe or frightening. The way you were held, soothed, spoken to, ignored, or comforted in a time you cannot access wrote itself into the deepest layers of who you became. Psychologists call it implicit memory. Memory without recollection. You don't remember learning that a certain kind of touch means safety. You just feel it, decades later, in your body, with no idea where it came from. So the paradox is complete. The most formative period of your entire life is also the one period you can never revisit. You are right now the product of a story you will never be able to read. And there's one more twist, because you may think you have a memory from before this door was supposed to close. A vivid one. Your second birthday. A trip to the beach when you were 2. Careful. Some of your earliest memories may not be memories at all. They may be reconstructions. You saw a photograph. You heard the story told at dinner 100 times. And your brain, being a storyteller above all else, quietly built a scene and filed it under things that happened to me. Researchers have shown that people can hold detailed, confident memories of early events that provably never occurred. The memory feels exactly as real as a true one, because to your brain, there is barely a difference. This is the uncomfortable truth underneath all of it. Your memory is not a recording. It never was. It's a story your brain tells and retells, editing a little each time, discarding what it can't keep, inventing what it needs. Infantile amnesia is just the most dramatic proof of a process that never stops. Even now, the memories you trust most are being quietly reshaped every time you visit them. So the next time you look at a baby, staring wide-eyed at the world, soaking in everything, understand what you're really seeing. You're watching a person live through the most important years of their life. Years of pure, unfiltered experience. Years that will build the entire foundation of who they are. and years they will spend the rest of their life unable to remember. You were there for all of it. You just weren't invited to keep it.